This podcast is brought to you by Iron Temper Supplies. They're the group behind the first ever Iron Gate International Tattoo Convention going down in Sydney, November 3rd, 4th and 5th at the Horton Pavilion. There's over 300 tattooers. It's invite only. Probably the most international tattooers coming to Australia for a convention ever. There's also going to be a bunch of stuff there. There's going to be bikes and hot rods, an exhibition, 2 exhibitions, one of which depictions of hell put on by the Australian Tattooist Guild. All the proceeds made from the sales of the paintings for that exhibition going to charity. There's so much shit to look at. So come down, the Iron Gate International Tattoo Convention going down. I said going down twice. That's fine. November 3rd, 4th and 5th at the Horton Pavilion in Sydney. Welcome back to the True Love Tattoo Podcast. Today, I'm joined by one of my personally favourite tattooers. It's Mr. Jordy Hooper from Hobart. Jordy, thanks for coming, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Let's get started with where you got started.
All right.
How long ago did you start tattooing? How'd you get into it?
Do you want shop or do you want pre-shop?
I want everything.
You want warts and all?
Yeah.
All right. I had to think about it. Like the timeline was a bit blurry. 2009, I bought the eBay kit.
Yes.
I got it. It was the dragon-shaped frame, and there was a skull-shaped frame. It was just a train wreck. It was horrible. And I did that. Kind of plugged away for about 3 years before I started in the shop. So 2012 was when I actually started.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you sort of transition from the bedroom wizard to in the shop? Like, did you sort of go to the shop and tell them that you were already tattooing?
Yeah. It was a badly kept secret. They were aware that I'd been tattooing and what I was capable of, and I think by that point, I mean, the tattoos still were pretty bad, but they were passable enough to kind of get me in the door.
Right.
Yeah.
And did I see that you sort of started out more like traditional, like doing the traditional sort of stuff?
Yeah. I think probably the first 5 years of tattooing was, that was the lane that I was in. I was, really into it.
In Tasmania the whole time?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was like your apprenticeship like? I guess it wasn't
one.
Because you
No.
apprenticed yourself in a way, didn't you?
Yeah. So what I did was I learned so much from getting tattooed. I used to come to Melbourne probably every 1 or 2 months and get tattooed. I was getting tattooed by Wade Johnson, who he owns Vic Market Tattoo. Yep. It's actually at Green Lotus where he used to be. And he was almost like an unofficial mentor to me. He was really, really supportive, and he didn't give it all away, but he gave enough kind of information away.
Sort of stuff to help you not fuck people up as much.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just a bit more of like a duty of care kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. And it was crazy how much you just absorb from sitting there getting tattooed, especially on the arms where you can kind of see what's happening.
Yeah.
So I would say that was almost my apprenticeship, was just kind of, getting tattooed and figuring it out.
Then when you started in a shop, was it sort of like, were you catching yourself like, oh shit, I'm doing something other people aren't doing? Like,
yeah, dude. It was the first 6 months were, I mean, after those 6 months, I felt like I had so much more kung fu after that. Like it was just it was like thrown in the deep end and figure it out. But yeah, I was kind of like, I could feel eyes like over the back of my shoulder and stuff.
Yeah, that full imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's honestly, it's like, that's been ingrained in me ever since. Like I've always felt that way.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, like, where you were working, were the other people that were working with you, do you feel like you got sort of treated differently because of how you got into it, or was everyone just cool?
Not really, because Hobart's a bit of a strange one. Like I feel like I came up in the first, what do you call it? Like even mainstream kind of like boom of tattooing in Hobart. So a lot of people in the shop that I worked at were at a kind of like a similar level to myself. So we were all kind of just figuring it out.
Yeah.
So there wasn't, I'm sure there was a little bit of judgment. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I feel like now it's still like such a stigma around people home jobbing, but through the time of doing this podcast, there's been so many guests on this podcast that have started that way, and all of them are like, oh, I would not fucking recommend it. Like, do as I say, not as I do. But it's crazy how many big name tattooers that are out there that did the DIY, sort of figured it out on their own in a way. And then I feel like that's, in a way, more difficult to then sort of break that wall down and get into the legit tattooing when you've sort of potentially got all this stigma around doing the home jobs as opposed to starting in a shop.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if I had my time again and the opportunity was there for me to do an apprenticeship, it would have been so much quicker.
Yeah.
Like what took me so long was, when you're learning, you might pick up a trick and you'll go, oh, that's how you do that, and then you do it on a 3 or 4 tattoos and you're really hammered in there. But when I was doing it from home, I might have been tattooing once a week on a friend, so I didn't have enough repetition to really for things to really click and make sense.
Yeah.
So it just feel like it was definitely the long way around.
Totally.
Yeah.
You feel like if you had that guidance or judgment or whatever, you would have progressed a lot faster.
Yeah, for sure. Or just somebody just go like, is this okay? Am I doing it right?
Yeah. So did it come from there just being like not many options of places to apprentice in Tasmania? It was just sort of out of necessity in a way where it's like,
basically I think there might have been, I really wanted to brush up on my Tassie tattoo history before this, but I found it really hard to find out stuff. So I think there might have been 1 or 2 shops in Hobart at the time. But then I think from maybe like 2010 onwards, that's when a few more started popping up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say the tattoo scene in Tasmania or in Hobart is like now? Is there like loads of shops or is it still pretty small scale?
I would say it is small scale. Yeah. There's definitely a lot more now than there was 10 years ago, but it's not oversaturated. There's plenty of work for everybody. It's great.
Yeah.
I haven't felt the need to move. Yeah.
And what's the percentage you reckon of people that are in Tasmania on holidays getting like a tattoo from you guys as opposed to locals?
It happens a lot.
Yeah.
I've got quite a strong clientele from Melbourne that I think it's a good excuse to like they can come down to Tassie and get a tattoo.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get a lot of tourists. But also a very solid, loyal kind of clientele at home as well.
Sick.
Yeah.
So your work now is very like sort of single needle, fine line, sort of black and grey, Chicano sort of influences.
Yeah.
Pretty far removed from like the traditional tattoos that you started off doing. So what was that sort of transition into a different style? I thought you were going to answer the question.
Yeah, jump in, man.
Evans, I'll take it from
you. Do you want to ask it again, or do I just...
What did I ask? What was the transition like going from sort of traditional tattoos to more the sort of fine line style tattoos that you do now?
The transition... It wasn't so hard. In fact, I'm really glad that I went that way rather than the other way around.
Okay.
I think coming from a traditional background, I had some of the basics down. You know, like you got to get the line in there solid, and you got to make sure you saturate everything. But yeah, I just remember it was strange. I think it was pretty much bang on 5 years, the 5 year mark, and I don't know. I couldn't make my traditional tattoos look the way that I wanted them to look. I think it was almost like I had this urge to kind of refine everything, and when I would do that, it just wouldn't look right.
Right.
Because I don't know, like the traditional tattoos that I really liked, they had like a bit of a like clumsiness to it.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't do it.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's this weird. It's perfect because of its imperfections, and it's clunky or weird or just sort of monged out a little bit, and you're like, how do they do that? Because it's so hard because you want to kind of, as you're doing it, your brain makes you want to do it in as literal as possible.
Yes.
Like if it's a rose, it has to look like this.
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
And then you see other people like whether it's the Smith Street guys or whatever, and it's so loose in its design and it's tattooed beautifully, but it's like, it's so hard. Like how do you get to that point? And I've always wondered whether it's just like sheer repetition, like they've done the same panther head 6 million times where they're like, how can I make it different to the last one? How can I make it different to the last one? And then it just becomes something so far removed from the original.
And confidence. Like I would almost be scared to show my customers these drawings of traditional tattoos that were a bit kind of wonky and had a bit of kind of flavour to that. I was like self-conscious about it. So yeah, around that time I think that's when the fine line things really started to kind of take off, and I could see it in the peripheral, and I was just at a point where I was like, oh fuck it, like maybe I'll give this a go. And it was crazy how quick it naturally happened. Like I just took to that so much easier than the traditional stuff.
And the reception of it as well.
Yeah.
People sort of like seeing that, being like, oh, that's cool. It's sort of like no one else around Hobart doing it as well. So it sort of like fell into that niche.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. So like with all the sort of stuff that you're doing now, it's almost like it's got more similarities to realism in a sense than it does like traditional in terms of like, you know, the Jesus heads and how it's shaded and all that sort of stuff. Like where did that come from? Did you always...
I honestly don't know. I think probably... I was thinking about that, and I feel like it's... The tattoos they're a mix of kind of like there's obviously the West Coast Chicano influence. There's still a bit of traditional influence, but then there is like a little bit of realism in there as well. And I don't really know where that came from. I can only guess that just I love those reference pictures and I wanted to do it.
Just try to replicate, like you're looking at it, trying to replicate it sort of as you're going.
Yeah.
Sick. And it's taken you so many places. Like you've tattooed in America for sure.
Yep.
And you tattooed Tim Hendrix's hand.
No, other way around.
Oh, he tattooed your hand.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. What was that experience like going to California? And
it was so good. So that was. I feel like the guys in the shop in Hobart, we were so lucky because we had a sister shop in San Diego, which was Tahiti Felix's master tattoo.
Right.
Which is one of the oldest on the west coast of America. I think it's been in the family since 1949.
Wow.
So the current owner of that shop was a regular guest in Hobart. He thought of Hobart as like a bit of a second home. He loved it.
Yeah.
And there was always an open invitation to go and work in San Diego. And that was like, that was boot camp going over there, because just a whole different level of experience. And it was very, very formative. And that I think that's where I probably kind of caught on to the West Coast kind of style.
Yeah.
Things. Yeah,
Sort of where it originated.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you go over there, and you tattooed at Tahiti Felix in San Diego. Where else have you been?
I was lucky enough to do the last 2 Bay Area conventions, which were just wild.
That's San Francisco?
Yeah, talk about imposter syndrome. Like, God damn. Tattooed in Los Angeles. Where else? I think that's it for the States. Yeah, mainly West Coast.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I've tattooed in San Antonio as well.
Yeah, okay.
Convention there.
Texas.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
But, like, after that sort of first trip over there and you came back, did you feel like much had changed for you? Like,
Big time.
yeah.
Yeah. I remember while I was in America those first years, like I was just so nervous to tattoo and to let any of the guys in that shop see me tattoo.
Right.
But I must have been absorbing a lot because whenever I would come home, I would just I'd be rejuvenated and I'd have so much more confidence and it just kind of grew from that.
Yeah. There's something to be said for getting out of the comfort zone and sort of like forcing pressure upon you in a way where it's like, cool, I got to go and like tattoo with all these like big dick swinging tattooers over here. And it's like, they're watching, all eyes on me. I need to produce the goods.
Yep.
And then it's sort of like you do it and you're like, oh, fuck, I could actually do it. And then you're like, and then you come back and it's like a newfound sense of confidence in a way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like it's like still if I'm working in a shop where I haven't met the people, I'm still like the first couple of tattoos are still like really nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just got to do it.
Yeah. Were there other things sort of like throughout your career that like in terms of getting out of your comfort zone and trying things and I guess what sort of impact have they had on you?
I don't know. I feel like just it's just the traveling thing. Like that's, I don't think I'd be where I'm at now if I had to just like rest on my laurels and just kind of coasted in Hobart. I just had to do it, as scary as it was.
Yeah.
Just had to do it.
Going over, were those shops as well, sort of like street shops where it's sort of like you didn't necessarily have to worry about pre-booking and you could go and there was work coming in regardless?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a massive help.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, and crazy to see that like even on the other side of the world, like the walk-ins, it's just the same stuff that's like that you get at home.
Southern Crosses?
Not Southern. Actually, no. In San Diego, I tattooed a Southern Cross. It was an Australian guy who came in and he had 4 moles on his stomach that were like in a diamond shape. And he just wanted one dot to like make the Southern Cross. So I did a Southern Cross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cosmetic tattooing.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was brown as well. Yeah, he wanted a brown dot.
I think we've just discovered that you invented cosmetic tattooing right now.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So what sort of, when you started tattooing at a shop in Tasmania, being a street shop as well, like what kind of things were people getting then?
Those were the years of infinity symbols.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
Big time. Yeah.
Where I apprentice, we had like a Bible, essentially, a big like folder of walk-in tattoos. And as soon as we would do one, we'd be like, oh man, someone's going to come in next week and ask for the exact same thing. Goes in the folder. And then like we had like a whole sleeve of infinity symbols where it's like, oh, you want an infinity symbol with the word family in it? Cool. Do you want uppercase or lowercase f? You could just pull it out, sorted. There was a page dedicated to Southern Crosses, dream catchers, everything. It was just like, and you would go and sift through the like folder once or twice a day, every day.
Yeah.
And it was just like, just hold on to all of them.
Yeah. You know, as painful as the infinity symbols were, like I think that to be able to nail a good one of those, if you can do that, you can do anything.
It's so crazy because like in shops, it tends to be like the least experienced person or the apprentice that gets lumped with those
right.
kind of things anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like absolute trial by fire
Yeah.
to go in, and then you've got this thing where it's like very little margin for error.
Yeah.
And you've got to try and and it's always they're never getting them on easy body parts either. No one's getting an infinity
Why would
symbol
they?
on the forearm. It's on the ribs or on the back of the neck or whatever.
Yeah. Goddamn.
Absolute nightmare feel.
Yeah.
But they were huge. I think it was like you were doing like an infinity symbol, one a day for ages.
Easy. I'm trying to think of what else. What was in the what else was in the repertoire back then? That's really the only thing that stands out. When did you start?
I started tattooing in 2014.
Gotcha. So not long after me. So yeah, we would have come up with the same kind of walk-in
It
thing.
was sort of you could tell what year someone got tattooed based on what it was, and it's still to this day like the trends that come and go. But like when I started, right before I started, sugar skulls were the thing. Everyone was getting a sugar skull, and then like people that were doing realism were doing like lady heads with the sugar skull makeup on it, and then it went from sugar skulls to owls holding sugar skulls as chest pieces, and then it just went to owls. It was just like this whole sort of like, you can be like, oh, you got that in 2013. And you're like, yeah, how do you know? It's like, because everyone got that in 2013. But it's still a thing. I feel like now it's like people are getting like the dragons or tattoos that are just red ink, just like because of Kylie Jenner or something.
Done a couple of red dragons I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny to see, and it's like they're still stoked on it. You know, they got it because they obviously saw someone with it and they liked it. So
Good on them.
Yeah. What would you say is the one image that you could do all day, every single day, forever, and not get sick of it?
Jesus head.
Jesus head?
Yeah.
Same. I think
Didn't even need to think about that. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Some people get like a little bit weird about getting religious imagery if they're not religious.
Yeah.
Strange.
Yeah, it's like they're pretty far and few between for me. Like I don't get to do them as often as I'd like.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's special when it does happen.
There's just something about religious imagery, like not even just like Christian sort of images, like even like Hinduism and stuff like that.
Yep.
But I think the root of everyone's sort of like apprehension is they don't want to like offend anyone.
Yeah. As soon as you kind of, it's associated with religion, it's pretty polarizing.
Yeah. I've got a cross on my arm, and whenever people see that, they're like, "Oh, you're religious?" I'm like, "No, it's a lowercase t. It's not a cross." Then I got a Jesus head. I'm like, "Oh fuck, what do I do?"
Yeah.
It's just a hippie with a fancy hat.
There you go.
Yeah. But so how often are you still traveling, like post-pandemic?
I haven't. 2019 was a hectic year of traveling for me. I did the Bay Area convention and did Europe, did New Zealand, and it was funny. Like at the end of that year, I wasn't getting excited about traveling. Like it was starting to feel like a chore having to do all the things you have to do kind of before one of those trips. And I thought, no, that's like, it shouldn't be like that. I should be really excited to do these trips. So I said to myself, next year I'm going to pull back. I might do like one trip, or maybe I won't do any trips next year. And then of course COVID happened and you couldn't. And then that's all I wanted to do because you couldn't. But yeah, I found myself becoming a little more hermitish in my old age, and I don't know whether it's just because I've lost the momentum or whether it's just what it is.
Yeah.
But I am starting to get the itch a little bit.
The itch again?
Yeah.
I felt like, because I'd travel a little bit, obviously not as much as you did, but I'd sort of go to Sydney a fair bit, and after the pandemic, I thought that I would be like jonesing to just get out there and go everywhere. And I went so far the other way. I had like almost like this sort of anxiety of going and traveling where I was like, oh man, I haven't done it in so long.
Yeah.
I just sort of, I've lost the the drive to go travel, and then it's like that first guest spot where you're like packing your bags and you're just terrified that you've forgotten shit. And
how do I do it again?
yeah, it's weird. It's like a muscle.
Yeah.
It's like you stop traveling and then it's like you're back to square one and you're like, fuck, I don't even know how to pack a bag anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I'm not alone on that thing.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
But it's strange where you think it'd be so far the other direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're going to have to come down to Melbourne a lot more.
Up to Melbourne?
Up to Melbourne? Yeah. I'm sorry. Melbourne's down to everywhere else.
Yeah, to everybody else in the entire world, Melbourne is, except for Hobart or Antarctica, I guess.
Antarctica?
Yeah.
I wonder if anyone's ever tattooed in Antarctica.
You know what? My friend Adam Vu, I think his claim to fame is he's tattooed on all 7 continents. And I don't know how he did it, but somehow he ended up in Antarctica and he hand poked himself down there. So he's done it.
Fuck.
Yeah, he got it done.
I'm so jealous of that.
Yeah, how good's that?
Claim to fame.
Yeah.
But there's so many people down there that work at like research stations and shit
Yeah.
too. It's like maybe you could just do a guest spot at a research station.
Yeah.
Just tattoo, I don't know, penguins on everyone or something.
That'd be badass. I'd love to go there.
I've seen like surfing, people go surfing in Antarctica.
Yeah, you can keep that.
The full thermal wetsuits and they wait for like parts to fall off a glacier and then it creates a bit of a wave that they can then like absolute madness.
Wild.
Are there places that you want to get to that you haven't been to apart from Antarctica?
Yeah, I'd love to tattoo in Asia somewhere.
Yeah.
South America. Yeah, I don't know. There's something comforting in the familiar places.
Yeah.
That you've been and you've got lots of friends there, and you know it's going to be safe.
Yeah.
And there's also this side of me that's like, I feel like I would like some rogue adventures, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
The most intimidating part for me would be the language barrier.
Yeah.
Communication's such a huge part of tattooing. Like,
Yes.
you don't want to tattoo something on someone and they not fully understand.
Yeah, it's a thing. One of my customers in Paris, he had no English at all, so he brought a friend to basically translate.
Yeah.
And you know what it's like? It's hard enough communicating with somebody in English about a tattoo. Like, things can get lost in translation when you speak in the same language. But when you have to like stop and talk to somebody else and then they talk to them, yeah, it was a trip.
I've tattooed somewhere and a guy working there was tattooing like this Chinese tourist.
Yep.
And got like a little symbol on his arm or whatever. And at the end, he like sort of was like, how long does it last? And the guy's like, what do you mean? What do you mean, how long does it last? He's like, well, how long will I have it for? He's like, forever. And the dude had a fucking meltdown.
Yeah.
Because it was, I feel like common sense. It's like, you're at a tattoo shop, tattoos are forever. And for some reason, he didn't know that and like couldn't communicate that he thought it was temporary beforehand.
Yeah, man.
I was just like, holy shit, that terrifies the fuck out of me.
Yeah. I had a lady in Hobart, I think she might have been Thai, and she came in with, it's quite strange, like she came in with 3 other Thai dudes and they kind of did the talking for her. And we ended up settling on it was like a tramp stamp butterfly.
Yeah.
And did the tattoo, and we basically didn't speak a word during the whole tattoo. And she got up and checked it out, and she walked over to the mirror and looked at it, and she just said, "Change colour." It was the strangest thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Change colour.
I think it looks good like that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, one time, this couple came in from overseas and the girlfriend was doing all the talking because I think the boyfriend just didn't speak English. And he was getting some letters on his arm and he just seemed apprehensive, really apprehensive. And I was just trying to be like, are you sure you want to get tattooed? Like, if she's making you get tattooed, like, I'll come up with an excuse, man. Like, you don't have
just give me the wink.
Yeah, and I think like he wasn't really understanding or whatever, and he just kept going, no, do it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right. And I'm trying to like, it was such a straightforward thing. And she's over the counter and she's like making me make this line longer, this shorter, like just full designing by proxy.
You love it, don't you?
So good. Then I was like, all right, man, come on through. And I'm like, you can stay there. Like, and he passed out with like a line to go, and she just like rushes out, scoops him up in her arms, and is like bottle feeding him sparkling San Pellegrino, and then feeding him like a banana. He's just so feebly, just like nibbling on the end of this banana, and I was like, what has my day become? What
Be a fly on the wall for that tattoo.
Yeah, and she's like, I want to speak to the manager, and I'm like, how do you think? No one here is a manager.
Yes.
Like,
Wow.
what are you on about?
Yep.
And yeah, it was really fucking intense. And I think there was some like back and forwards in the email because I made him pass out or something.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, it happens. It is like her cradling him with the sparkling water.
I can say it. Yep. Beautiful.
Have you had like many people like pass out in a spectacular fashion?
None in a super spectacular fashion. It's funny, my first tattoo in Amsterdam, my very first customer, we were gonna do a dagger on his arm, and he got up to go and look in the mirror, and he like kind of stood there for about 3 minutes, like too long, like long enough that I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go up and like go, no, it looks good there, you know. Yeah. And luckily I did hop up because like as soon as I like got close to him, he just fell into me.
Oh shit.
Yeah, like this, hadn't even started tattooing. It was just like looking at the stencil and he was down.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I've seen that. That happened to one of my friends. We went to a convention and same thing. He thought he was getting tattooed on the Sunday. Just went up to say hi to the guy that was going to do it the day before. And he's like, you ready? He goes, aren't I getting tattooed tomorrow? And he was just so caught off guard and everything. And yeah, he was like going to put the stencil on. And he's like trying to put it on, and it just never connected with his skin. And he's just slowly falling backwards.
Oh man, I would be so mortified. I mean, I can't help it.
That's the thing. Yeah. It's like I've never understood. Like, I can understand more like when you're getting tattooed, how it can happen.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, but like,
if it's an adrenaline dump or very nice.
It's amazing.
Science, man.
Science. Yeah. I feel like the greatest pass out I've ever seen is my mate Louis, who's on the podcast. And I didn't even point at anything over there. And so Louis was tattooing, just did like a little walk-in, and he was just sort of like turned around to get like Glad wrap to wrap the tattoo up. And the girl was sitting on the massage bed. And I was looking at the back of her head, and she went backwards off the massage bed like a scuba diver going off a boat, and just folded like a piece of fucking lawn furniture on the ground. Yeah. And it's like your first reaction is she's dead.
Yep,
she's dead.
Yep.
There's no bouncing back from that. But the best part was like it didn't make a sound, and Louis just turned around and his customer's gone. She's just down on the floor. And then we're like, all rushed over, and she was totally fine. She just like landed on her shoulders and didn't hit her head miraculously or whatever. But yeah, just to dip backwards, and then Louis just turns around. It was almost like a Benny Hill sketch, man.
I love that. Isn't it crazy though that like once they pass out, like 10 minutes later they're fine. Like it just
And all of them sort of describe it as like, it feels like I've just woken up from a really good nap.
Yes.
Which I guess they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got another good one for you. I recently tattooed a friend of mine. I was tattooing his thigh, and he started to nod off.
Yeah.
So he's nodding off. And then in his sleep, he's like starting to like swat my hand away while I'm tattooing him. And his partner was there, and we were kind of having a bit of a giggle. And he was like, yeah, he does this from time to time. But then 5 minutes later, just like out of nowhere, he just like so violently like sits up straight and stares me in the eye. And have you ever seen someone's eyes just before they're about to pass out? Like they're just not there.
Yeah.
he had those eyes, and it took him about like 30 seconds, and then he was like, "Where am I?" Like, it just
Oh, it's like he was possessed.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
What the fuck?
yeah, wild.
It's creepy. Yeah, the whole swatting of like been tattooing someone's knee, and they just like, go to a doctor and the reflex.
Yeah.
I've been tattooing someone's knee, and they just fucking like
Yep.
almost kick me in the
Of
head.
that.
Yeah, it's fucking wild. I feel like I haven't had anything like that in so long either. It's
You're not doing it right then.
I mustn't be doing it right.
Yeah.
I need to work harder in that department. But like, how do you see sort of tattooing over the course of like 10 years that you've been doing it? Any sort of like changes, like not just Hobart specifically, but sort of as a whole, how do you see tattooing has changed over 10 years?
Yeah, it's a hard question, especially because I feel like Hobart it's very insular.
Yeah.
So what what it might be like for me down there might be very different for somebody from a bigger city.
Yeah.
Like what have you noticed?
I feel like technology and stuff obviously has sort of progressed, but it's weird because it's one of those really slow things that it's like you don't even notice it at the time really, but then when you think 10 years ago you weren't using an iPad or like just little things like that, or like social media and all that kind of stuff, it's sort of like it just really creeps up.
Yeah.
And you don't sort of notice it as much. Yeah. And then I feel like a lot of the people that have been tattooing for like a really long time, like 20, 30 years, they sort of like, they talk about tattooing now as if it's all fucked now.
Yeah.
It's not, it used to be so much better. And I wonder why. I'm like, shit's easier now.
Yeah. Yeah, like the technology thing, I can see how it's like I definitely know the iPad has made me lazy.
Made you lazy?
Yeah, like it's so convenient to do it like that. And when, the shop that I've always pretty much been at, really busy walk-in shops, and I don't know how I would go back to like without an iPad.
Yeah.
Just being able to whip stuff up on the spot like that.
Ultimate tool of productivity.
Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty rare that I draw on a piece of paper these days.
Yeah. Everything's predominantly iPad.
Yeah.
There's less wastage. You're not printing shit off,
true.
resizing it a million times, cutting it out, doing arts and crafts, like doing the old mandalas where you'd have to fold the piece of paper 10 different ways for the axis of symmetry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolute nightmare. But I don't know, a little bit jealous of the guys that tattooed like a while ago.
Yes.
Because I feel like they all had so many good stories as well. It's like shit was a bit more fast and loose then, and it's like less red tape around things, and they, were just swapping. Like heaps of them just had like side hustles and bootlegging shit out of the shop while they're tattooing as well. It's like that people just aren't doing now.
Yeah.
It's like the do you ever hear of like Dickie Reynolds that used to tattoo on Flinders Street back in the day?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was like milking tiger snakes for venom when he wasn't tattooing, and he just had like a tub of snakes under his counter just down on Flinders Street near the station. And so if he wasn't tattooing, he's just milking venom from snakes. And then like if people like sailors or whatever come in and just fucking around, he'd chase them out with a snake. And then someone tried stealing a snake from him, and then like he got the idea from this dude called Lynn Vane, who's from like Western Australia, and he'd like travel around, and his best friend and his wife died from getting bitten by his fucking snakes.
God.
And then he's like, the courts were like, you need to get rid of all your snakes, and he took them out to this island off of like Fremantle called Karnak Island. This is a little island, and he just released all these tiger snakes onto it.
Oh my God.
It didn't have snakes previously.
Oh no.
So now it's just rat fucked with snakes. But then he kept going over and just like nipping off to the island to grab some snakes and making like belts and shoes and a bunch of random shit. And it's like he just couldn't give it up. They all had side hustles or like whatever.
They don't make them like they used to, do they?
They don't. They don't. Now if people are like, I have to be an influencer and a tattooer, and it's like no one's milking snakes.
I heard a good story about a a tattooist in Hobart when they used to get sailors come through. I think this fella was a little bit dodgy, and I heard a tale. I don't know whether it's true. I hope it's true. That he used to use like mustard as yellow pigment. Yeah. Yep.
That would burn.
Yeah, it would burn, wouldn't it?
I don't even know if it would stay.
I don't think it would.
He's just kind of like, what have I got lying around that's yellow?
Yeah.
And just went with mustard.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
How good's that? Yeah.
That's so good. When you were back in your home jobbing days, was there anything that you look back on now and you're like, why was I doing that? Like
All of it.
all of it?
I did a tattoo outside on my deck. I did some outdoor tattooing.
Al fresco.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And I remember that I was so unconfident and just untrained, unknowledgeable. I didn't know anything. But I was so unconfident to even pull a line that I used to I would just do these like tiny little circles, like just all the way along, like etch in a line because like I didn't have the confidence to just go up.
Yeah.
God, it's just nightmare fuel.
And I'm sure your eBay machines probably weren't the best quality.
Nah, they were spitting. They'd spit at me.
I feel it's still a thing where it's like you'll tattoo someone and they'll be like, yeah, my brother bought a kit off eBay and stuff. And like people are still doing it.
Yeah, I feel like every 20-year-old customer I have, like they've all got a friend that's got a tattoo machine.
And it only comes out at parties. Yeah. It's such a weird I understand the drunk, silly tattoo, like getting carried away and everyone like amping each other up for it. But I'm like, getting tattooed a lot of the time can be quite boring. You're just sitting there.
Yeah.
You're at a party. Why are you doing it? It's a weird activity to do at a party.
Strange, yeah.
It'd be like, yeah, let's all sit around and do some Sudokus or something. Yeah. You know, like
that's my kind of party.
Yeah, fuck yeah. So with like the old and new of tattooing and the comparisons, I feel like so many people, like I said, are sort of like trashing tattooing today. Like, I don't know, what's your argument defending the progression in tattooing as opposed to being stuck in the old ways?
That it's like, it's no one's to make claim to. Like,
true.
You know, like I feel like tattooing is just its own thing. And if that's what's happening, like that's what's happening. Like,
yeah. And there's so many worlds within tattooing as well.
Yeah, exactly.
The ancestral and tribal sort of tats or hand poke, like hipster tats or whatever. It's
exactly.
Like,
so I feel like I just don't really have an opinion on it because it's just, I'm just doing my thing. And, I definitely feel like maybe the magic is kind of like getting diluted a little bit. I don't know whether that's just because I've been in the world for 10 years now. I just remember it was the most exciting thing in the world.
I know what you mean. Maybe it's like it still is like that, but just because you've been exposed to it for so long, it's like less noticeable.
Yeah.
It was like maybe if you took a step back and then came back to it, it'd be different. Or it's just not what it was.
Yeah.
It could be either.
Yeah, it puzzles me. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Do you remember like your impression of when you went to get your first professional tattoo, like walking into a shop to get your first one?
Yeah. Yeah, it was Smoke Dreams.
Smoke Dreams?
You remember that shop on Flinders Street? It was like a bong shop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, downstairs.
Yeah, I feel like that either is still there or just recently closed, like
It's still there.
Right on the sort of near the corner of Elizabeth Street and Flinders Street. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got tattooed by a fella named Smear who I had no idea who the guy was, but like after later on I've heard he's like a Melbourne legend.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What'd you get?
I got fluoro-coloured stars.
Fluoro-coloured stars.
Yeah, because that's what the pop punk kids were doing in the early 2000s.
Right.
Yeah.
And like you walk in to a bong shop,
Yep.
get tattooed.
Yep.
Excited, nervous, intimidated,
All the above.
all the above.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like? Was that the only tattoo you got at that shop, or did you go back and get?
Yeah. That was the only one I got at that shop. But it was so good. He looked me in the eye and said, "Welcome to the club." After we finished, and so I like to do that to like first tattoo people now. Yeah,
That's such a thing, isn't it?
it's a good one.
They feel like a part of this little world that was so mysterious to them before they walked in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always, like, you can sort of like, it's easy to forget when you've been in tattoo shops all the time and you don't smell the green soap anymore because it's just part of it.
Burnt into your nostrils.
But for so many people, it's like their first impression walking into a tattoo shop. It's the smell, it's the sound, it's like all those things. And it's like nothing they've experienced before.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's like a weird new little world.
Yeah.
And I guess they sort of like, not so much addicted to it, but they get their first tattoo and then they're like, oh, that was so exhilarating, like the adrenaline of getting a tattoo. And I think that is why people think tattoos are addictive. It's more so the adrenaline of getting it as opposed to having the images.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved that. Like, yeah. I just loved the magic of it. It was bizarre.
So throughout tattooing, who would you say have been like the most influential to you in terms of your career?
Definitely Tim Hendricks. Like having the opportunity to work with him a couple of times is like just unreal. Like the guy has the best stories, and he's just the coolest motherfucker on the planet.
Yeah.
Basically. Lucky enough to meet Freddie Corbin, who's just the god.
Yeah.
Got tattooed by Chuco Moreno.
All those California legends. Really pioneered that style.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's so sick.
Yeah.
Do you feel like when you were getting tattooed by them, you were just sort of learning more off them than tattoo things, you know, like outlooks and stuff like that?
Yep. Approach. Yeah.
Any sort of like pearls of wisdom that they just dropped on you and you just sort of...
No, nothing super obvious, but I don't know. It's hard to describe, but I definitely, after I got tattooed by Tim, like things changed for me.
Yeah. His magic just rubbed off a little bit. Yeah. He's one of those guys that he's been tattooing forever. And obviously he was on the TV shows, like the LA Inks or New York Inks, Miami Inks, stuff like that. Like he was on those, which I think like a lot of people, not so much in tattooing, have heard of his name through that.
Yeah.
But he's one of those guys that's been around for so long, and he's also one of those guys that can do everything as well. Like a real like street shop warrior that, you know, if you want a Japanese sleeve, no worries. You want a portrait, no worries. And it's like, it's rare that there's someone that can do so many different things and be good at so many different things.
And there's no pretense whatsoever. Like he just wants to do a good tattoo.
Yeah.
Or do anything.
I feel like
can do it.
I feel like that's gone away a little bit now too, but maybe because there's so many people tattooing now, whereas like more people feel like they need to fill a niche and all that sort of stuff, and less like versatility is becoming less of a quality that people are striving for.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
So it's cool seeing those guys that have been doing it for so long and still like doing whatever comes in and just stoked to do tats.
Yeah, it's awesome. And he's a machine as well. Like, remember one of those days in San Francisco, I think he did like 20 tattoos in like a 12-hour day. It's
insane.
Just left everyone in the dust.
Yeah. And that's not a flash day or anything.
No.
That's just a day at the office.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
What are your days like? How many like days a week are you working?
In the last year, I've actually just dropped back to 4 days a week. Last year, I had a frustrating couple of months with some angry tendons in my forearm, so I'm getting to that stage now.
Right.
Yeah, so made the call to drop back to 4 days a week, and that's helped a lot. And I found that my attention span, like I'm good for like 2 tattoos a day.
Yeah.
Any more than that, just like starts to push it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely like I take it pretty easy these days. But yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's that sort of that social battery that you don't really take into consideration when you're tattooing.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, for Tim to do 20 in a day, that's 20 separate conversations, you know, like small talk or whatever, and that's a lot. Like, I feel like most people in their everyday life don't talk to 20 people in a day, regardless, you know, and to be able to do that and try to, like, because you're conscious about trying to like provide a good experience for them too.
Yeah.
You want them to have a good time. So I totally know what you mean, where it's sort of like, yeah, more than sort of like 2 customers in a day can get like, fuck, like I'm pretty tired. I've had the same conversation twice already, like in terms of, oh, where are you from? What do you do for work? Like all that kind of stuff. And it's like a third one, it's like, can be hard.
Yeah.
But some people just fucking love it.
Yeah. My partner Brooke and I, we had it was tough there for a bit because she is a disability support worker, and for a while there she was just working with non-verbal clients, so she wouldn't get to converse with people during the day, and I'd be at work like conversing with people all day, and then I'd come home and like I just brain dead, don't want to talk, but then she wanted to talk. She hadn't had anyone to talk to all day.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So with the tendons in the forearm, like, how did that sort of surface, and then what do you do with it?
It's a really frustrating one, man, because really the only thing you can do is just rest.
Yeah.
But obviously being self-employed, that's not a thing. So what I've found is that now it's about finding a balance and finding the right kind of load that doesn't flare it up and doesn't anger it. It's funny, what I think might have happened is I made the switch to a wireless machine.
Yeah.
And they're really light and ergonomic, but they're a lot longer, and so there's a bit more weight at the back. And so what I think happened was I just kind of changed straight away to this new setup, and the balance of it just was like straining in a weird spot, and I hadn't had a chance to kind of like warm up to that or build the strength in that particular spot.
Right.
So I think from just like hammering away for like a couple of months with that, it did some damage.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people transition to that to, you know, for
that reason.
And then that ended up being the undoing.
Which kills me because like it's just so convenient.
Yeah.
That setup. Like I'll still use that if I'm traveling, but just when I'm at home,
So you reverted back to what you were doing in previous?
Yeah. Luckily, the machine I have, you can do both. So you can run it with a cord or a battery.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So once it had the cord, it felt like a different weight and it felt like easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So doing kind of tweaking with the setup and doing physio and just dropping the load back, I think I've got it under control. Like if I have like an unusually busy week or I go away and I do a convention, like I'll be sore for a little bit, but I think it's manageable now.
I feel like nearly every tattooer I know that's been tattooing over 5 years has an ailment of some kind that's come from tattooing. And it's like I sit and I essentially draw and I'm accumulating injuries, whether it's neck, back, wrist, shoulder, whatever. And it's one of those things where it's like you just don't think about it. And it's like I'm so bad for it. I got like bad back from bad posture from sitting and, you know, hunching over and all that sort of stuff. And if someone's like filming in the room, like an Instagram story or whatever, I'll correct the posture. But then as soon as they go away, I'm like Quasimodo again, just tattooing. And it's like no one, when everyone gets into tattooing, they don't think of that.
Yeah. It's scary, dude, because there's really no exit plan, is there?
No. None.
Yeah.
But like people, like office workers get it. They get like carpal tunnel and RSI from typing.
Yeah.
Like
dresses.
Everything.
Yeah.
And then all the time I'm like, oh, I should get into Pilates or yoga or something like that. And then I just always have an excuse not to.
Yeah.
It's like time or
pretty
effort
good at
or
making
whatever.
the excuses.
Yeah.
I know it would be good for me.
Yeah. Which is even kind of like crazier to me that those older guys would tattoo for 30, 40 years or whatever with coil, like heavy machines.
Pencil thin grips as well.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. It's not ergonomic. And it's like, how did they do it for so long? It's like, have we gotten softer?
Like I said, don't make them like they used to.
100%.
Not enough snake venom these days.
Well, enough. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe he was just like, just swigging snake venom off to the side. There's something to it.
Gotta be.
Well, Jordy, thank you so much for coming all this way.
It's been an absolute pleasure, mate.
I really appreciate it. Do you want to give a plug to the shop?
I'm working at Hobart Tattoo Collective, so if you're ever down on the South Island, come in and say good day.
Awesome.
Cool.
Appreciate it. Cheers, mate. This podcast is recorded with the team at Superdog Studios here in Melbourne. For all your video and audio podcast needs and much, much more, visit superdogstudios.com.